Well, let's go ahead and get started if everyone's okay with that. And as folks come into, I'll keep an eye on the waiting room. And as folks come in, we'll invite them into the conversation. Welcome. My name's Kelly Fuller, Director of Workforce for the Columbus Chamber of Commerce. And it's really my pleasure this afternoon to have a conversation with Toni Cunningham, Managing Director of Scholas, and with Opal Brant, Director of Business Solutions with the Workforce Development Board of Central Ohio. A little bit of background on this conversation. In my role at the Chamber as the Director of Workforce, I talk to our members on a daily basis, and we've been really talking a lot since the middle of March when the pandemic kind of sent us all into a mode of, sorry, letting somebody in here, went into a mode of incredible disruption. And what we're hearing from our business members is the top 3 issues in Q2 were, how do I hire and onboard virtually? So there's some good news in that, right? That says businesses are still hiring people. So there's that to be grateful for. What they're also saying, their second issue is, how do we train and educate our employees in a virtual space? You know, what do we need to know as businesses that we can make that effective? And the third top issue of Q2 of the Chamber members was internship opportunities, which again, I found a lot of hope in all of those issues because they were very focused on continual hiring, training and educating, and looking to a younger emerging workforce as potential candidates for their talent pool. So the Chamber has over 2,000 members, and the vast majority, 80+%, are small to mid-sized businesses. So a lot of times I try to advocate on behalf of our smaller businesses who don't have a deep bench of human resources to help them with a lot of the issues around hiring, onboarding, training, and connecting with interns. So today's conversation, as I was looking at the issues that had been brought up by our Chamber members, I was thinking around our Central Ohio community, who are some folks that are in this space of training and hiring and onboarding and helping businesses find the best resources. And couldn't find 2 better organizations and representatives than Toni at Scholas and Opal with the Workforce Development Board of Central Ohio to talk about those very issues and concerns. So I'm gonna turn it over to Toni, and then Opal, if you don't mind just introducing yourself a little bit about you and the work that you do at your respective organization.
Sure, thank you. Thanks, Kelly, for the invite and the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. As Kelly said, my name is Toni Cunningham, and I serve as the Managing Director for Scholas Columbus. And Scholas is a national nonprofit training organization that focuses on training individuals in IT. So we focus on relevant IT skills training, helping people acquire certifications that show mastery of skill in those areas in IT. And then we support them with making that connection to launch an IT career, i.e. landing their first job and working through the process of launching a career. We also, in our training, support with what we call career advancement or professional development. So we do a lot around building yourself as a professional and as you build yourself as a technologist. We focus mainly on individuals who might not ordinarily have access and opportunity to get into IT because of maybe the barriers to cost for relevant training programs. And so most of the individuals that we serve may be underemployed, may be unemployed, maybe fresh out of high school or fresh out of college and just haven't really been able to get their footing yet. And the support of certifications as well as an organization like ours to connect them to opportunity is kind of what they need as a launch pad to get started. So I serve as a managing director. I've been in that role since 2016, so coming up on 4 years. But Scholas has been in Columbus since 2012, and we've trained over 600 individuals in this community. And nationally, we are celebrating our 25th anniversary, headquartered in Bronx, New York. So we were in the Bronx for about 16 years before we ever expanded. And now we are in 14 cities across the country. So great work.
Yeah, and congratulations on the anniversary there of the organization too. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Opal, you want to share a little bit about what you're working on and about the Workforce Development Board of Central Ohio?
Absolutely. Again, my name is Opal Brant. I am the Director of Business Solutions with the Workforce Development Board of Central Ohio. I've been with the Workforce Development Board since June 2019. So I've only been with the board for a year. Newly, about 3 months ago, became the Director of Business Solutions. I'm originally from Maryland, so that's a nice tidbit for me. So born in Ohio, I love it, but not new to workforce development. So a little bit that I like to explain about the Workforce Development Board of Central Ohio. We are the fiduciary agent over the Ohio Means Job Center in Columbus, Franklin County. As a Workforce Development Board of Central Ohio, we are the local workforce area. We receive the local workforce funds from the state to provide workforce services to individuals and to business. So as a business solutions team, my job is to understand what the business community looks like here in Central Ohio, so we can get good information from businesses to connect the talent in this area to those opportunities. And we have a plethora of funds to help support businesses upskill their employees in their current workforce, but also to upskill the community members within Central Ohio. So it is our role to really understand intimately what the business community's needs are and create programs and pipeline opportunities to help people connect to your talent. And that's my little girl knock in the background.
Okay, thank you, Opal. She can come in. So we're going to probably dig, I know we're going to dig a little deeper here in this conversation about the funding that is available to business and industry through the Workforce Development Board of Central Ohio and some of the funding streams you mentioned, Opal, and how our businesses that are on this call and in our community can benefit from that. I want to also let everyone know that if you have questions, we want to make this interactive as possible. Feel free to either put it in the chat or take yourself off mute and join the conversation. That's really the goal here, is to engage in conversation in real time. So Toni, I want to ask you really quickly, since this is kind of build about, how do we train and educate our workforce in this virtual world? You guys made the shift like that back in March. Talk a little bit about how that happened and what you've been doing and learning in that process.
Sure. Yeah, that was, I tell people all the time, a pandemic hasn't happened in 100 years. And so I think we all were like, wait, what? And we were going along. We had just started a cohort, or actually two. My director of strategic partnerships and student experiences on here, Mr. Noah Mitchell, and he remembers we had just gotten our two classes seated. They were going along, had been in class for a couple of weeks, and we got the call saying, hey, clear the sites. Tell everybody, just if they don't have a laptop at home, pick up their laptop, go home, and we'll figure it out later. But we got to get people safe. We want to get them out of the building. And so for us, that was a huge pivot, not only because the students had planned to be in person in training and we didn't know what their home life setup was like, but also we had planned to deliver training in person and hadn't necessarily built out an infrastructure to do it remotely. The good thing is Scholas had already been testing in some other markets what we called blended learning. So we were already doing, the equipment with the Cisco and WebEx, and we had a live instructor in New York and a class from Dallas remoting in, and we were already testing out our capabilities in terms of how to really create impactful virtual learning environments so that we could expand not just through brick and mortar, but also take some of the geographic constraints off by being able to expand because we could serve anyone anywhere in a remote environment. So what happened was we literally had to take our little bit of learnings that we had in that short period of time, flip it, and send everyone remote. And so you all know what happens when you're reacting to something, right? It's kind of like we learn as we go, but we just got to get them home, get them going, and then pray that this group can work with us and muddle through as we're all navigating what does it mean to now be at home with our kids, our spouses, ourselves, trying to learn, trying to earn, and the whole 9 yards. We learned a lot in that process. I'm proud to say that many of our students were able to hang on. I think in one class, we only lost like 2 people. We had another class that was a little bit harder hit, but imagine, as you all know, some of the emotional stress and anxiety when you have family members in your home, like literally getting sick, and you can't be on screen and be focused in learning when you have to tend to some other more urgent matters. So we did lose a few, but overall through that process, we learned how to better deliver in a remote environment. And so I'm proud to say that our 2 most recent cohorts in Columbus, one started June 1st, the other one started July 20th, were all curated through remote process. That's everything from applying online to attending the information sessions to the one-on-one interviews, all the way to the seating in the class and the orientation. It's all been done remotely. And we've supported individuals that did not have equipment to through a laptop loaner program to actually help them have what they need. So hopefully we wouldn't have to turn them away because of not having access in order to get the training. So far, everyone that we curated in the remote environment, we haven't lost a soldier yet. I think we just keep perfecting it and understanding how to build that connection, because our model was built on in-person engagement. And so it was high touch, as Kelly knows. She's participated in our mock interviews, and folks come in and speak to our class, business professionals. We do on-site engagement where we go out to businesses with our students and let them see what it's like in the working world. And so all of that kind of came to a halt. So we're trying to figure out how to recreate that in an impactful way. And I think we're doing a really good job, with it. So.
Thanks for that. I was going to ask about the issue of access of either equipment or connectivity, and it sounds like you had a solution for that for individuals, at least for the equipment piece. Were any of the students in the cohorts experience any issues with like inability to connect as far as like access to internet services or?
Yeah, when we first went remote, I mean, there were some students we had to search, and I don't know if you guys had this issue, but MiFis were like hard to find back in March. So we literally had to source them wherever we could. Amazon, Verizon didn't have any more. And what we did, we just didn't know what to do. So we were like, okay, let's just get the MiFis, deploy them to the students that need them, and we'll just put them on our service, which financially we weren't prepared for. I mean, that's an expense we wouldn't plan, and it just wasn't sustainable because each of those MiFis represented like $40 a month in internet charges, and that's not something that we could sustain. So to just deal with the students who were in class in the moment that had to switch, we did that. We took on that expense as an organization, and I will say across our network, we actually transitioned more than 500 individuals to remote in about a week's time. When you think about across our entire network, and some of them in more areas than others needed the MiFi device as well as the laptop. In Columbus, that need was more narrow, so we didn't really have to give out any MiFis, but we did do some laptops. And we did have students though with connectivity issues, and in a virtual classroom, the broadband access is important because we want you to turn your camera on. And so we had a lot of students who had connectivity issues because maybe their broadband wasn't strong enough for them to be on camera and to be learning. And so we're definitely looking at, as we move forward with the new remote training model, what does it look like to provide equipment and broadband access to individuals who wouldn't have it?
Yeah, that's an important takeaway. I know we talk about that a lot, getting away from the assumption that everyone has access to and then having to really quickly. So I appreciate your response and input on that, Toni. Opal, I wanted to talk to you too a little bit about some of the training and the businesses that you're working with. What are you hearing from the business community as far as the appetite for virtual training, and what are some of those trainings that have transitioned either really well or a little bit more bumpily to a remote space?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, initially, a lot of HR departments, and I think a lot of you probably would be able to speak to this, those who didn't have to, it was a shock. It was a shock to the hiring process, because a lot of organizations were used to bringing people in for live interviews. They had to quickly pivot. Healthcare organizations, how are we going to safely, actually everyone, every business, how are we going to manage this safely? But I think from the businesses that we have connected with, they, of course, everybody had to do virtual interviews for jobs that could, that were still there, because there were some employees, businesses definitely, I'm just looking at my email now, 9 warn notices, which is a layoff. So that's an issue. So we were dealing with a lot of companies, there's a lot of talent churn. So as far as the hiring process, you know, as you know, many of them just went to doing at least a screening virtually. Then those had to get used to doing the interviews, the true interviews virtually. And that was new to a lot of different organizations here. Then as things start to open up, like now, they'll do the screening still virtually or over the phone, but then come in person, social distancing with the mask, you know, for the actual interview. So I think doing that, people have been able to pivot more easily than it is. And actually, how do we do our work with social distancing? I think that's been the larger issue that we've seen working with businesses. How do we actually do our work practicing safe social distancing? Just look at our manufacturers, look at some of the warehousing. They are the ones that kind of had to really think about how do we do things differently. Whereas our IT partners were able to pivot pretty quickly, because that's kind of what the nature of their work entailed.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm thinking, you know, my background, and I see one of my former coworkers on the call, Christine Boucher. I come from career tech education space. And, you know, I think about some of the classes, some of the trainings, and I also see Mark Swepston on the call, things like HVAC. Sometimes it's hard to actually, you know, how do you train for that in a virtual space? You know, how is it a blended learning, or, you know, what does that look like for folks that are in more of the skilled trades?
Sure, Christine could probably speak to this as well with our tech schools. I know some of them, but those handle skilled trades, those healthcare professions that need that learning environment, those clinical environments. They're reducing, from what I understand, they reduced the amount of class sizes they had to do in person for, say, social distancing, but they're still happening. I mean, you can't, the construction doesn't stop. All these, healthcare does not stop. They've been working throughout this pandemic. So I don't know if Christine wants to add anything to that, since she comes from that, working as a training provider in the tech school.
So even through the summer, and hello everybody, even through the summer, and including yesterday, we are bringing kids in small groups, 9 or less if they have one instructor, and going through their certification. So like yesterday, we had 2 of our exercise science students take their certification test, finish up their program. So even though they received a passport and graduated in May or June, they still were not able to complete those certifications. So our instructors are bringing them back in during the summer to do that. That's with our high school students. Our adult students are all, the class sizes have been reduced to half. So for example, in our HVAC program, if there are 2 instructors, there's 8 students. They're trying to stay within that 10. I know that in some instances, some are saying 15 is okay, but because this is a full-time program, if the state should come back and say, no, you've got to go to 10 again, then we wanted to be able to be within that range. So, and all of our programs, all of our adult programs are doing that. Our high school programs were set up to, juniors would come to school 1 week, seniors, and it would be an all-day lab 5 days a week. Seniors would do the same the following week. And then in the off week, they would do their academics online. And they were making accommodations for splitting those classes down into different areas and assigning academic teachers to work with an instructor, program instructor. But that has all changed today, and it's back to virtual. It has been a struggle, like everybody knows, for instructors to come up with virtual things, but I have just participated in 8 sessions from Ohio Association of Career Tech Ed. They did their conference online, and it was a great collaboration of teachers from around the state that shared best practices in doing virtual learning. And I think we need to keep engaging more of that with these instructors, because they're going to run out of resources, and we need to keep them in their seats and ready for when we come back.
Right. Thank you for that, Christine. I appreciate that input. And it's really, from a perspective of workforce, it's been a struggle, as you all know, trying to, prepare employees, hire, retain employees, trying to plan. Planning is such a challenge at this point. So I appreciate that, Christine, and the comment about continued engagement, so that we're talking through this whole process and sharing better practices with one another. So thank you for that.
You're welcome. Kelly, can I mention one thing from my perspective? And you know this because you and I have had the same role in developing business partnership relationships for our programs and for our students and our instructors. The essence of career tech ed that provides so much benefit to a student, whether it's high school or adult, is that ability to be able to interact with business partners. And that has taken, as well as teaching and learning, that has also taken a different approach, because there's so many mixed conversations from both sides, from business partner side on, yeah, we want to bring a student in, or no, we can't do that, especially in the healthcare area. So that makes for our pre-nursing students very difficult for clinicals. And then on the other side of it, the school's saying we've got to keep our students safe. We really need to maybe hold off on the whole experience, that internship or work-based learning experience. So I really am I struggle to figure out how we can get business partners to help us do this virtually. And I'm just putting that out there, because if anybody has any great ideas, I need them. I'll put my email in the chat, so if you think of anything, but that's really, it's the full roundedness, like you all know from Career Tech Ed, that one piece is getting them in with that business partner to utilize their skills.
Right, absolutely. Toni, to that point, for you too, from your organization, what can businesses do to engage and to help with this, as you're doing the training virtually and the students are experiencing it virtually, where's the intersection for businesses?
I'm happy to respond, but I think Opal was going to follow up on something that Christine had
okay.
just mentioned. I don't want her to lose her thought.
Did it look like I was about to say something? I try to control the face, but I was about to put it in the chat. So Christine, what you said is very important. And us as a workforce board, it's important that and I love that, Kelly, you brought this group together to have this conversation, because we have to come together and really think about how we can leverage our resources to make things happen. Because what Christine is speaking to, I can't put people through training. But the business is saying, I don't have enough people, I need people, right? So now there's a clog, and I call it a clog in the workforce pipeline. So my immediate thought, Christine, is to work with our healthcare sector partners, and that comprises of all of the hospitals and the COPCPs and the primary ones, to think about collectively how they can help do what you just said. How can we coordinate a clinical experience? And I'm not saying this conversation hasn't happened, but it's probably individual with each business. But if the partnership kind of takes this thing on, then maybe collectively they can think about how we can organize something strategic. And as a workforce board, we have resources, resources that help training providers and helps businesses really do and help navigate this talent pipeline, and really to help businesses, help pay for training and help individuals be able to get the training that they need to be competitive in this market. So I love that you mentioned that, and you said that, Christine, because that is absolutely what we need, is that business engagement all of us need to really develop a workforce, develop the talent that you need to be successful in your organization, in your business.
Yeah, thank you for that. And Toni, I'm going to pause you for just a second, because what you just said, Opal, I think is something that folks on the call would be interested in as well. You alluded to like funding opportunities, like ways that the board can help pay for funding, either through the training provider or for the business. What are those funding streams and how do they work?
So as you can imagine right now, the whole drive is to help all the dislocated workers, all the dislocation that has happened with them. But we've always had funds available for individuals, like the ones that Toni serves, individuals who've been impacted by layoffs, individuals who are looking for career advancement. So it goes in kind of two pots to make it simple. Those who are looking for work, those who are already working. So the incumbent worker training is if you're a business and you're looking to reskill your current workforce. Say you have a position that is hard to fill and you want to send someone or a group of someone's to training to help you remain competitive. We have funds that'll help you pay for that training. So it's called incumbent worker, and you will get a reimbursement of training funds. So if you pay $2,000 for a training, we could potentially pay 80% of that. So that's something to be informed about, and I'd be happy to connect with anyone who wants to learn more about that. On the other side, we call it on-the-job training fund. And I should mention there, I guess it's 3 pots. So OJT fund, on-the-job training, is if you are interested in a person who otherwise fits your particular role, but may not have a certain certification or a certain something that you need to, that person remain competitive. You could pay someone like Christine at Fairfield, or you can do it in-house. We reimburse wages up to 50% of getting people that we are serving through our job center or with one of our partners to hire that person, and we'll reimburse their wages while you train them. And that, again, could be at your business or it can be with a training provider like Fairfield. The other is an individual could be interested, say, I got laid off, I'm interested in becoming a nurse now. We help people, we call them ITAs, but they're essentially scholarships to go to a training program at any institution that is accredited or on our WIAT list, like a Fairfield Tech. And I'm picking on you, or for Scholas actually, to go through a training, and we pay for it for that individual. So it's always important. So I personally, I don't train anyone. No one at the Workforce Development Board don't train anyone. And our partners do. Our partners with our training providers and workforce agencies that help prepare people for opportunities. So we're like a funding source and a strategic partner to help make the connections here.
Right. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I think that's really important right now that the business community understands there are resources, there are financial resources and educational partners available to them should they want to develop, upskill, or bring on new talent.
And there's one coming down pretty quickly, but it's for incumbent workers. But I think it'd be very interesting for businesses who may not have some type of professional development scholarship for their current employees, like an engagement opportunity. We are about to have funds that could be dedicated specifically for that to help you customize a program. So you'll definitely be hearing more about that once we get more details on it. I would certainly let Kelly know as a chamber to help push that out. But I want those on the line to keep that in mind as it relates to funding.
Thank you for that. Toni, I'm going to hop back over to you. I do want to, because I did have the pleasure yesterday of participating with NOAA's folks on some mock interviews virtually, and it was a different experience. I've done them in person in the past, and to do it virtually was different, and there was some real pros and cons in that, some really good takeaways. I think people were kind of relaxed, right, in their own space. There was more of a, just kind of relaxed and in a good way. Other than the mock interviews, which are wonderful, what are other ways that businesses can and should engage with you guys?
Yeah, so outside of the mock interviews, we've always offered the opportunity for individuals to come and speak to our class, share their journey, provide any insight they may have to individuals, or even, be a guest lecturer. And so what we found is that corporate engagement has increased through COVID because we are online, and people can literally, if you can hit a button and participate, then they're like, oh, I've got a couple hours in my day. I've always wanted to engage and kind of see what's going on inside of these training organizations, and or share and help build the next generation of workforce. And so it's pretty awesome if folks say, we have an actual professional development curriculum, and it covers all the topics, everything from, conflict resolution to workplace norms to working on teams. And people may say, oh, I want to talk about that, or I have some deep knowledge or experience or a passion around it, and would love to talk to folks just around, how to be successful and how to position themselves to be successful. So we have that piece. We're kind of looking, as we build out this remote model, we too have to worry about simulations. for Scholas right now, our network support course is really hands-on because it deals on the infrastructure side. So typically they got to handle break fix equipment, take a computer apart, put it back together, stick the plug in the wall, does it work? And those types of things. So there are some simulations that you can do online to just help them kind of understand components and parts, but there's nothing like touching it, right?
Right.
And so we're trying to figure out what that could potentially look like, because when you think about all of us going remote, but we still have all of this real estate that we are paying for, that we have to manage. Is there a way to utilize our spaces differently and safely so that you can either host labs or have instructors teach from the classroom and maybe get that one-on-one experience with individuals in a safe way where they do have a day they're assigned to come in and maybe handle equipment. So we're looking at all of that. I know for me, I've always wanted, even since I came into Scholas and learned about tech workforce development and all that, I've always felt that virtual reality and augmented reality have a place in training. And I feel like, even when I was thinking about the clinicals in the healthcare environment. Imagine if, you could put that in a virtual reality type setting where people can actually put the goggles on and feel like they are there and operate in that space. Or you can have the stuff sent. I got a box. I'm participating in a piece with Stanford, and I received a box with all of my materials, and then we'll be online and be doing some things virtually with the materials that they sent. So just really getting creative around how can we create this experience that can be as close to in person as possible, given our limitations right now. And then keep in mind that as you build out remote, it's cost effective. There's nothing like in-person engagement, but as much as you can do remotely and in this virtual world, that just is going to enhance but possibly cut down costs, or imagine lowering the amount of time for onboarding and new hire training if you could do a lot of it in the virtual world. And by the time that person shows up to start the job, they're literally getting started and they're ready to jump in and engage because we've done a lot of onboarding through the virtual process. So I just think we can get creative, and with the business community, there are organizations like ours who can help you think through some of those things. And look at how we're going to use technology, and maybe that may, spur some innovation inside of your businesses and organizations in terms of how you want to either onboard new employees or manage your current workforce.
Yeah, it sounds like. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know, saying I wanted to echo what Toni said, because in workforce development, if you're working with people, who are thinking about career transitions or early in their careers and they don't know quite what they want to do, if virtual reality was an opportunity where they can explore, where I don't have to necessarily go into a healthcare facility, I don't necessarily have to go to an IT company to really see what software engineers are, that could be a more efficient way for us to really help pipeline people into career opportunities that are in demand. So I would love, love, love to see something like that come into development. And I know us as a board, we want to support something like that.
I think
that is actually.
Go ahead, Christine. I'm sorry. Talking all over everybody. I'll stop.
That is actually something we started looking at last year for like the elementary and middle school level, to get students to explore beyond their borders of possible careers that they don't know exist. And it's quite a challenge financially to invest in that. So if there's any opportunity to connect with anybody in creating something like that, that doesn't have to be exclusive to us, it could be used in other environments, we'd be in on that conversation.
Christine, collaborations are about.
Yep.
Yeah. Christine, you mentioned the Ohio Association of Career Tech Ed had their conference yesterday. Is this something that at a state level that we should be having this conversation as well, and connecting some of the training partners like Toni and the boards, like the one that Opal represents here in Central Ohio?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And I am on the board for Ohio ACTE. So, and we are having our board meeting here at 3:00 today. So I will put this on my agenda to bring it up with them to see if we can start having conversations, because listening to people across the state, and we're all in the same boat with our education environment, our training, career tech ed. I think this has forced us to have to look at how do we bring this to students of any age differently, and this would make an ideal opportunity.
Great. Well, I would like to turn it over to the whole group. Any questions that you have for anyone on the call, Toni, Opal, any of the other peers that you see on this screen, or that you don't see on the screen?
All right, maybe I could ask a quick question. Brad Griffith from Buckeye Interactive, software engineering firm. I know a number of you on the call. Thanks for joining us. So I'm interested in Scrum training and Agile project management training. I don't know if any of you have experience with what's available. I've got one employee who did some project manager training and then attended a Scrum training online. Is that something that you might cover, Toni, in some of your curriculum, or are there other project management things that you cover? And Opal, is that something that might be covered under some of those incumbent worker grants?
So Scholas right now does not, I personally would love that because I'm not a technologist, but I am a business analyst, and opening technology up for people to understand that there's a role for a lot of different people to be engaged with technology and you don't have to just be a software engineer or a cybersecurity professional. So I love that aspect of it. We have not launched that as of yet. I think that for us, we have a whole group of alumni, and we're building out an alumni engagement strategy. We have over 10,000 alumni since we launched across the country, and they're all at varying stages in their careers. And I could see something like this as an offering to the alumni to be trained in project management, Scrum, and there's certifications attached. My understanding, you can get all the way up to Scrum Master. And so I think that's awesome, and would love to explore that. And I think that, not wanting to speak for Opal, but I do believe that you could look at those certifications and get on that WIET list of approved training. And that's when it becomes, the ability becomes to access those funds for either individuals who want to go get the Scrum certifications or companies that want to upskill in that area. But it's definitely, and it's going to be a huge need based on everybody pivoting and reworking their strategy based on remote working and post-COVID. What does the workforce look like? What does the way we do things look like? I think that project managers are going to be in high demand as we try to turn the tides.
Yeah, thank you, Toni. So to answer your question, Brad, yes, that will be covered. I mean, employers are power. So anything that employers say that they need, then we're going to oblige them. Isn't that right, Kelly?
That's right.
So we actually are working to get a focus group. One of my colleagues is working on that now. I'll definitely connect you to. So we've been approached by a number of training providers that offer a lot of different things, and all online. So just this week we had a meeting with one. So before we do a strategic plan or project with any particular training provider, if it's an individual provider, we definitely want to have employer input. But we offer, as far as individuals, we offer a customer choice. So they can look at any provider that we have on the list, and they can go anywhere they want. Businesses, we offer the same. So we'll bring you a group to say, this is who we've been talking to, this is who we have, and that can be reversed. To say, hey, this is who we like. And if you say this is who you like, then that's who you support. So yes, is a question that it would be something that would be covered through one of our programs.
Okay.
Reimbursement.
Sounds like we might be able to go find the training and then propose it to you and say, this is something we think would be valuable. You know, taking, for instance, one of our a content strategist, someone who does marketing and copywriting, and she wants to get more into product ownership and what that looks like from a project management. And it's definitely that upskilling you talked about, Toni.
Absolutely. You know, we don't try to tell you what to do. You tell us.
Yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
So
does anyone else have experience with that? Yeah, Kelly.
No. I was just going to really quickly ask you, Opal, what is that vehicle to do that? So, to reach out to you, like to say, hey, as a business owner, you might not have this certification on your on the list yet, how did they just pick up the phone, call you?
So it's a little, so yes, and I can put my email address in the Business Solutions email address in the chat. I met Brad before. I don't know if you remember. I went out to New Albany with my colleagues.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, so that's the way, if a business says we want to use this training provider, they don't necessarily have to be on that wire list, but we'll make sure they get on it.
Yeah.
As an individual might want to go to that program too. We want to be able to help support that individual as well. So we'll take you through that process. I'll put my information in the chat for everyone.
Thank
Great.
you. I'm sorry,
I think I
Brad.
have one
go
of your
ahead.
business cards laying around somewhere.
Yeah.
Does anyone else on the call, roundtable style, does anyone else have experience with project manager training?
No.
We actually have somebody that went through and got a undergraduate degree in project training online.
Wow.
And he just graduated since the first of the year. Then COVID virus stuff hit. Unfortunately, I think he was going to leave us, and we've worked here for 5 or 6 years, and so it's been very interesting to see how you do it. But if you want to do it, you can.
Yeah. Do you know where you did that?
Pardon?
Do you know where your employee did that?
No, I don't. I can find out for you and email you or something, but I don't know. Except you may want to hire him.
Yeah, no, I won't steal him from you.
He's a great employee.
I'll send you an email, Mark. I think I've got your email address.
Yeah, just something, for the three of you that have mentioned these different things like HVAC careers, because we're very interested in that, project management too, and different things. We were very disappointed because of about the second week of March, or maybe third week, when everybody's going, is anybody ever going to go back to work in a way? And we had 5 people that were our trainees, and we said, hey, there is so much great stuff online. If you want to learn, you can learn a new skill online. I mean, I had some shoulder surgery. I've been in this industry for 45 years, but I had shoulder surgery like a year and a half ago. And I got online through the Train Corporation for an industrial electrical course. It was 40 hours, and I took it all in 1 week, and I felt great about it, because I was home and doing anything else. We took 5 people and said, look, we will pay you up to 40 hours a week if you want to get online for training and stuff. One of them got on for 2 hours, and that was it. And they're in a training mode where they can go from, say, $16 an hour to almost $40 an hour at their own pace if they really want to go at it. So I look at you guys that are involved with educational places and saying, where do you see the motivation where somebody steps up themselves and says, I enroll in your programs or want to come ahead? Because there are unlimited jobs as far as we can see. Believe me, we could take up to 20 people right now if they just even want to really seriously start in a skilled training program, that comes into it and goes through. And you talk about project managers, that's a whole different level, if you get there to that point. So you look at those things in between, and we almost can't get anybody to interview for the jobs if they're going to start at $16 an hour. I was a business owner saying, they're not seeing anybody and haven't. And, the legislature is trying to looking at this because of the way things have been supported over the last 12 or 14 weeks. Nobody's applied for a job at under $20 an hour to speak of. It's interesting to see what the challenge is there. But those guys in 2 years could be making almost $40 an hour if they'd start today. And I just wonder what you guys are seeing out there because we're a business, and they may or may not come through the door for whatever reason, but you see people that are just going to get education. What do you guys see, and what are the motivations, even if it's up to project management? Because I consider that higher than the skilled trades even.
Mm-hmm. I think there's definitely exposure, and there's a way to market the opportunity that generates excitement. And of course, as a business, that wouldn't be in your wheelhouse, right? That's the people who are out looking for a way to make more money, make better money, make a career transition. They're probably not going to look to the business to say, oh, tell me how I can do this. They're going to look for organizations like ours or the Workforce Development Board or the Career Tech to say, maybe I need to look for some training. I think with where businesses can come in, and we just established a partnership with a local business here in utility construction, and there's a tech component to it. And people had no idea. The one phrase the gentleman likes to throw around is, you have no idea how many wires there are in wireless. And someone has to lay those wires, and someone has to put that infrastructure in. When people think tech, they think software engineering, cybersecurity, desktop support, IT call center, but no one thinks about the side of it where someone's laying fiber, splicing fiber, running, wiring buildings. That's all still tech. But we had to expose that to individuals and say there's a level of training that's different than what you would get in a traditional Scholas training. And then we, as a training provider, partnered with the business because we bring credibility to the training process to say, we're willing to work with the business to build the curriculum out. And then we offer it, and individuals actually sign up with Scholas to do the training, understanding that it's a partnership with the business. And at the end of that process, there's a job. And so when you set it up like that, where we can invite you in, the business and the training provider are standing there together saying, yep, if you complete this successfully and go through this process and show these competencies, we can guarantee you either have an apprenticeship position that's paid, or we're going to hire you. Then people will come and they will commit that time. They will be online. They will do whatever, because they understand that at the end of this process, with the right supports, I should be able to land in a role. And so it's kind of hard for you to attract them and say, come, and then say your first, 6 weeks on the job is training. But if they come through a training provider, they may be more apt to, you may attract people who understand that that's the process to get to where they want to be.
That's, and you couldn't explain that more perfectly, Toni. A lot of times, and I hear from businesses all the time, like, I can't get anyone. It's really about, when you talk about the untapped market, it's about awareness. They don't understand what that pathway is. I was a career coach for a long time, and it's our job to kind of help that person understand what that pathway is and what the opportunity is. Because I don't know what your company is, sir, but they may not even know what that is. They don't know what that company is, but it's really providing that awareness from the ground. And that's what training providers and also workforce development agencies can provide for you. So that's why it's imperative, especially during this time, that business community is connected to your training providers and workforce development agencies, because they're touching the people that can get to your particular occupation. Because they just don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. Good point. Any other questions or comments? We're coming towards the hour here in about 10 minutes. We'll have been on for an hour. Any closing comments or questions for anybody in the group, from anybody in the group?
Other than I want their contact information, so maybe we can get together somehow, Kelly. So just make sure, but because again, I just met with a guy, and we've got 2 organizations between the 2 of us. We've got 250 employees and could use 50 more.
Wow.
And we would pay people while they're in training to get, it's really, so it's an interesting thing. But I just to give you a touch, I think Kelly heard me say this before. We have a niece, and she was dating this guy, and she, he fairly bright and stuff like that, but he didn't have a lot of parental, support growing up. And my wife got to know him and stuff like that. And I heard through one of these meetings about how Columbus State's thing is, hey, we're going to get people, our drive now is to get people from $15 an hour to $30 an hour. So she went and took him aside and took him to breakfast one morning, like on a Sunday morning, something like that. And he never got back to her, because she said, this kid's such a good kid, I'm willing to help him go to school at Columbus State if that would help him, type things. Turns out he never got back to her. So about 2 months later, she sees him at our niece's, at their apartment, and he goes, we go, she said, why, what was up? She says, I thought you had, he says, well, I only make $9 an hour, and I didn't know if they'd accept me. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, you guys deal with people like this all the time, and that's not negative. It's just, he did not have any guidance at all growing up. Believe me, if you get into this, and he had no parental guidance. So he didn't even think that he, because he was only making $9 today, that because Columbus State, because we said 15 to 30, and he wouldn't even come back and do it. And so, and I'm sure he would fit in our program, your program. I wouldn't bring him in here just because of the closeness of it a little bit, but at the same time, you've got to run into stuff. So when you guys say, hey, you can help promote it, cross promote it, from having that experience, I got to believe that we think we're doing it right, but there's got to be some connection in between.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I would just add in closing that, you know, when we think about the untapped workforce and now the newly displaced workforce, there's a lot of, and I'm going to use this term, even though we're in a business setting, there's a lot of healing that has to take place among individuals who have either been out of work or trying to get solid work, where as a business, we can set up our organizations to be a coaching, mentoring, supportive environment. And when people know that if I come on with your company, you care about me as an employee, you're going to invest in my growth and development, and that's where you get the loyalty from. And that's where you get, they run out and they tell everyone that they know, hey, listen, you know, you want to come work for my company, or you want to come go through this training or whatever, because it changed my life. And so what we found is keeping our seats full is creating the most amazing student experience that we can. And Noah can attest to this. I talk about this all the time. The student, they have to have the most amazing experience and training possible, because then they will utilize our resources the way they're meant to. They'll show up the way they need to as candidates for these positions. And they'll also go and tell everyone that they know, hey, you might want to go try for Scholas. And so consequently, our classes are filled through word of mouth referral. We do market and everything, but a lot of it is word of mouth referral. And so I say that same thing about companies. You all have the ability to offer them amazing, you know, benefits, perks, training, opportunity, mentoring. And that's what individuals are going to need in order to grow up inside of your organizations and become those individuals that are that next generation that's going to keep your company growing and expanding. So love to partner with anybody in any way around how you might want to think about how you market to potential individuals, as well as how you onboard them and create an environment where growth and development is just a natural part of it. Like, you already know you're coming in here, but in 6 months, 12 months, we expect that we can help you get here. And this is what it's going to mean to the company. And this is what it's going to mean for you and your family. So that would be my parting 2 cents worth.
Just to put some punctuation on that, of the 3 people I did the virtual mock interviews with yesterday were all referrals from someone they knew and trusted. So that speaks volumes to the work that you all are doing at Scholas. Opal, any closing thoughts for us?
I just put in the chat box that Toni made my job so much easier. I echo that. The programs that we have and the resources that we have, the business, that advice, that consultation is essentially what we give, but we have resources to help you be able to build that for your current employees and the future employees that are being sent to you. And we love to work with wonderful training providers like Scholas and Franklin Fairfield, Eastland Fairfield. I did say I was new to Ohio, right? So therefore, we love to really support the network to really help you. And I didn't get your name, sir, and the other employers on this call, to really get the workforce that you need and the talent that you need. So,
yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, I will. So this has been recorded. I probably should have told all of you that in the top of this. And there was a thought leadership piece that the Chamber workforce side created that's going to go out in next week's member spotlight. So we'll have a link to this conversation. In addition, in the chat, folks have been sharing their contact information. Opal, Christine, Toni, Noah, all have their contact information in there. But I'll also do a follow-up email to everyone that's on this call so that we all kind of have each other's information, and I'll send the link to you all that way as well. So thank you guys so much. Appreciate seeing all of you on this call today. Appreciate the conversation. Stay safe and be well, and hopefully we'll all be together sometime soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Kelly.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.